I wanted to. Brilliant, thank you.
So these are the things that I want you guys to think about. So if you do the mental skills work booklet and you've kind of thrown through it and sorted it all out, these are the kind of the things that we'll be marking you on to ensure that you've kind of met the criteria to kind of pass the module. A lot of these things can be ticked off via just kind of open discussion during these workshops, or just casual conversations with myself, also through written notes that you kind of create. So the first thing that we want to look at is we want to make sure that throughout the last 2 years, you identified of kind of what are your psych demands within handball. Did you understand what you need psychologically to succeed? Do you understand your own needs? And most of you guys have already done this. A lot of this was done within the first workshop which you had, probably I think it's 12 months that you did, just understanding what is required to succeed at the top level. We'll then look at explaining, are you self-aware of how to develop your own needs? And a lot of you guys have probably worked upon this. So whether that's setting goals on your own or setting goals with a tutor, that's developing understanding that you understand what you need to improve on as time goes on. We'll then look at the essential behaviors. So that's the application of psychology. So kind of the attitudes, the goal setting, the professional skills that you need to apply. And then finally, we'll look at kind of the communication side. I really want to see that you're engaging within this process and you're getting some value from it. Because you do a lot of work booklets, I like to make sure that you do get something from it and you're able to apply within your competitive performances, because there is no point in coming into this DiSE program for 2 years and just filling out a work booklet for the sake of it. I want to give you the practical skills that you could actually utilize for any challenges that you may have. And then we will kind of look back on that and look at your reflections, your observations, and then finally just explaining how you've worked with myself or anyone else, if you work with other sports psychologists, of how you've improved on your psychological side of your performance. So this is an easy one. So I'm just going to talk through this and kind of explain what exactly is thrive in terms of the definition. So when it comes to thriving, which is probably a term you've probably heard get thrown around a lot kind of the last 12 months, especially if you watch the Olympics, you probably would hear the term thriving or flourishing get talked about quite a lot. And athletes think that means solely based within your sport performance. So if you're always succeeding at the top level, winning trophies, winning championships, that means you're thriving. It doesn't necessarily mean that. Thriving is more of a broad perspective. So it means you're thriving both in your handball performances, but you're also thriving outside of handball. So that could, for example, that could be you've got good social relationships, you're thriving within your school education, you've got a career that you're working upon. It means that you're thriving on both sides of the coin. Also, when it comes to thrive, and the key aspect of this is you feel good. The general kind of general consensus is you feel good, you've got a positive mindset, and you generally feel like you're optimistic towards the future, and you know you're good at something. So it'll be interesting to see within this kind of workshop where that applies within yourself. Do you feel confident within the whole of handball? Is it one aspect of your life that's outside of handball? Again, we'll chat through this. And second part of it is kind of progression. So even though I'm talking about progression from a psychological perspective, thriving can come in any form, whether that is physical progression, so that's improved strength, improved cardio, technical and tactical skills, which I know you've obviously worked a lot on the last 12 months. Also social, which is sometimes forgotten, that the social side, if you can thrive socially, that can make a massive positive influence on your overall performance. So this is the first thing. This is the first opportunity for you guys to generate notes in terms of what you think leads to an athlete thrive. And so what I want you to do now is just spend a couple of minutes, first of all, whether you want to do an open discussion verbally, just think about what do you think can help an athlete lead towards that phenomenon of thriving and feeling good. What helps an athlete achieve that kind of sense of optimism, sense of feeling good? What helps them get to that point?
Motivation.
Yeah, motivation is key. Anyone in the room, was their motivation dented in the last kind of 12 months? Kind of through what you've gone through?
Can you say that again?
Anyone in the room, anyone's motivation was dented or reduced kind of last 12 months, kind of what you've gone through?
Not being able to play, you know, you kind of lose the motivation there. Isolation being.
Yeah. Have you had any competitive opportunities in the last kind of 6 months since kind of COVID started to relax a little bit?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was the key one that you guys were missing in the first 12 months of your DiSE, that the main environment that you kind of competed within was either on your own at home or training environments. And you can be dedicated and committed to training, but it's never as exciting or as glory hunting as playing in the competitive setting. I know a lot of you guys, I think I heard yesterday the season starting up as well, the competitive season, the men's league.
Yeah.
So it's a great opportunity again to start to feel good about yourself. So anything else? You got motivation, which is a great one. Anything else that helps you kind of get towards that point of feeling good?
Good performance.
Yeah, exactly. So you're able to see that you're doing well, you're progressing. I put in there sometimes you can't always see progression that's obvious. So what I mean by that is that could be skill execution, it could be that you score more goals within the game. What do you think are the less obvious progressions that you may see over that kind of you might have seen in the last 12 months within your personal performances?
Confidence.
Yeah. Would you say that's been a natural progression just as time's gone on, you felt more confident because of your aging, or has it been that you've actually worked upon starting to feel more confident?
Probably both.
Okay. Anything that helped you kind of build that confidence? Was it kind of utilizing other people, or was it just solely just working upon yourself?
Again, bit both.
Okay.
Teammates.
Cool. Good stuff. Anything else, lads? You got motivation, confidence, which is obviously a great one. Anything else that can help you along the way?
Wait, did you hear that?
Attitude.
Attitude. All right. Okay. Anyone honest? Can anyone be honest with me and say that their attitude absolutely stunk at some points in the last 12 months, especially when they kept getting knocked back in terms of being able to play handball?
Can you say that again? Sorry.
Would anyone admit that their attitude kind of got a little bit more negative or got a little bit worse as kind of time went on the last 12 months? Or do you feel like it actually got better and it made you more driven because you're getting kind of put barriers put in front of you, so you kept going, pushing harder?
Yeah, probably were.
Okay.
Because of the isolation.
Isolation.
So isolation made you more hungry, in other words, more of a drive to kind of go forward.
Yeah, but then it also made it a bit worse because you're just stuck inside of it.
Yeah, I don't blame you on that one.
Yeah.
So a few more things just to think about here. So you focused on attitudes and you focused on kind of confidence. These are a few more things that can help kind of contribute towards that process of thriving. And again, during your notes, write down your reflections on this a little bit about how these components kind of might have influenced you. The key one here is knowledge. I think for you to see progression, you need to have the ability to know how to progress, whether it's technical, tactical, even psychological. So that's engaging with the appropriate people, such as your coach. So think about as well within your reflections over the last 12 months, where have you retrieved your knowledge from? Is it that you've spoke to coaches or you've spoken to professionals that you may know? Is it that you've not had the opportunity, you've kind of just done your own research? So you might have been, you identified an elite athlete and kind of modeled their behaviors and kind of worked out what they're doing to execute their skills. And have you kind of modeled your own behavior on that side? It's a really, really important one. And if you are doing the work booklet, that's where it's a great way to kind of demonstrate your reflections going, well, I've got more confident. I've got better at doing this because I've gained the knowledge from X, Y, and Z. It's a great way to demonstrate your engagement and your deep kind of reflective skills around psychology. Relationships and social support. You guys talked around a lot around social isolation, which is, again, was a really challenging thing because when you kind of started this journey, especially within DiSE, you were already doing it all virtually. And it's quite hard to build a relationship over the camera. You might know some of the athletes on the program, but some of them you may not. Even coaches you may not be familiar with. So even having that motivation and that confidence to kind of speak to a coach, you might find it more challenging because you've not already built that relationship kind of face to face. And then finally, stress and pressure. The key when it comes to thriving is you've kind of got to experience and expose yourself to kind of experiences that will allow you to learn and develop. Some of those experiences will not go well and they'll be embarrassing and there'll be failure involved, but within that, they'll allow you to learn. So again, when it comes to your observations and your notes that you write down, think around, especially during COVID, think about specific situations where you felt under pressure and you perceived it as a challenge, but think about how that has helped you develop and what you may have learned from those experiences. So whether that was commitment to things that you don't find interesting, such as your fitness and your nutrition, whatever it may be, think about those learning opportunities, and that will allow you to kind of demonstrate how you understand the process of thriving. So the next thing I'm going to show you now is kind of like a diagram here. So this is kind of like about 3 years ago, a load of sites came together and they interviewed a number of elite athletes to ask them about what do you believe allows you to thrive, okay? And they put it kind of like a 3-stage process. And what we're going to focus on is this first one here, the personal factors. And the reason we focus on this one is it's within your control and you're able to influence them. Whereas there's other things as well, such as the environment, but you don't always have as much control over this. So you've already talked a little bit around some of these personal factors. Number one that they found from interviewing kind of these top elite athletes in the world was if you don't have the desire and you have the motivation to keep going, 9 times out of 10 you won't reach the top level. Even though you hear coaches bang on about it, you need to feel passionate about the sport that you compete within. So if you're sitting there right now thinking, I'm not as passionate, I'm not sure how to do it, a great way to kind of boost your passion towards a sport is just to learn more about it, to spark that interest and work what you get out of handball. It might not be winning the trophies. It could be the social side. It could be that it gives you an opportunity just to feel good about yourself. Try to understand what you get from handball and also learn a bit more about it. And that automatically starts to boost the passion and the drive to kind of keep going within handball. Commitment and trust to the development process. And this is probably something which I would say has been threatened quite a lot for you guys the last 12 months, that you've been told by a lot of people to stay committed and believe in it. But when you keep getting knocked back from various angles, it's very hard to stay committed. But again, it's one of the key components of progression, that you need to stay committed. You need to trust the process, even though you might not see immediate progression and immediate improvements. You've got to realize that sometimes you might have to wait a little bit of time. You've got to keep going at it. Understand your own personal needs. I'm not talking about this from a psychological perspective. What do you need from a social perspective? What do you need from a technical perspective? Do you need support in your nutrition? Whatever it may be, if you can understand yourself and what you're all about, it makes a massive difference in terms of how quickly you can progress. Self-control, which again, help me out here. Would you say your self-control within stressful situations has improved as a result of going through COVID?
No.
No. Would you say it's got worse?
Yeah.
In what context, or what kind of area within performance or your life would you say you've lost self-control?
I'm not really sure.
So I guess the way we could look at it is how you manage yourself a better way. So is it that you struggled to manage your fitness levels when you were during kind of lockdown? Was it you struggled to manage your keeping on top of knowledge of the game?
Yeah, fitness levels was a concern.
A concern, okay. Anyone else in the room that kind of felt it was the opposite? Because I know some athletes kind of actually really enjoyed it because it gave them an opportunity to get into the running trends and the cycling trends.
I liked it.
Sorry, say that again.
I liked it.
You liked it, yes. Yeah. So were you able to maintain it over the whole period, or was it more like the start you really enjoyed it, and as time got on, it got a bit more boring?
No, the whole time.
Good stuff. What did you take up to keep that fitness going?
Well, I made like a plan over a week, and then just did that every week.
Okay. Did you vary up? Was it like specific? Was it like a variety of exercises, including running, cycling, your strength and conditioning?
Yeah, it's a mix of running and strength and conditioning.
Oh, brilliant. Fantastic. Another one as well within this process, and you guys mentioned this, was your performance. And when it comes to thriving, it can be difficult to kind of utilize previous experience, especially success, especially if you're not getting opportunities to kind of compete. And when it comes to thriving, you might have done this anyway, but it's important to look broader in terms of your focus and take successes from other areas of your life, so whether that's you succeeding within a career, succeeding within social relationships, within school, or just succeeding at kind of maintaining your mental well-being. Use those successes to keep you pushing in other areas of your life. They call it the effective path to well-being. So if one area of your life isn't succeeding, you've got to kind of draw inspiration and optimism from another area of your life that is going quite well, which I'm sure you guys might have done, especially when you've had limited kind of competitive opportunities. Goals and creating opportunities. Again, it sounds boring, but I think the top athletes, they actually self-set goals. They don't wait for coaches to tell them what they need to do in terms of what's the improvements. If you know what you need, you'll set your own goals. And like you just mentioned, one of the lads there said about your fitness goals and your fitness plans. By doing it yourself and setting your own goals, you're more engaged in the process. You're more motivated to keep on top of it because you've set it. Athletes self-set goals, and it's one of the, I would say, non-negotiables of elite success. That if you're able to continue to set your own goals in any context, whether it's performance, life, nutrition, fitness, by doing that, you keep out on top of stuff. And the ninth one is positive mindset. I would say to get to that point where you're a positive mindset, the previous 8 get you to that point. It's not simply you can start thinking positively. Some athletes can do that naturally, some can't, so it's quite challenging. So again, those are the kind of things that I've, over the last 12 months, I know I've had limited engagement with you guys because of different reasons, but those are the key things. If you focus on those 9 personal factors, that can allow you to kind of move through the process and kind of lead to this final bit of outcomes where you get personal benefits, your performance improves, you get confident in improving, you get here a platform for positive momentum, which means instead of success being a one-time thing, it's consistent. And then finally, you feel happy and you have a positive mood, which is probably the most important thing. Even though sport is competitive, ultimately at the end of the day, all you want to do is feel good about yourself. So this is an interesting one for you guys. You might have seen this if you watch the Olympics. And what I put here is, I want you to think about this right now, is who is thriving and who has struggled. I've got a few athletes on there. And if we start off on the right-hand side, are you able to identify who the athletes are on the right-hand side?
LeBron James.
No, not so that, I'll give you a clue. The US said that's a sprinter, not a basketball player.
Isn't that the gymnast?
Djokovic.
Yeah,
Is it on the right?
you sound on the right, but yeah, you get
Osaka.
you got Osaka on the bottom, yeah.
Is
Yeah,
that the young tennis
Simone
player?
Biles.
Yeah, on top, yeah.
Is that Curly?
Is that the young tennis player that like, just won?
Yeah. That's Raducanu. Yeah,
Raducanu.
yeah, she won last night. And then top left.
Top left. Oh,
He's, yeah, breaststroke.
PT.
Yeah, PT. He's based in Loughborough. And you've got the final one here, the sprint on the right hand side.
There's a couple.
Yeah.
His name's called
Trayvon Bromwell.
Yeah, Trayvon Bromwell. So the reason I put him there is we'll go through in a second about kind of what they've gone through. Trayvon Bromwell was a sprinter who had the fastest 100-meter men's racing time going into the Olympics. And if you watch the Olympics, most especially men, the 100-meter men's race is probably the pinnacle of the Olympics. It's the most exciting race to watch. And he went into, I think the time was, it was in the 9.7 area of kind of the seconds, but he failed to get to the final. It didn't even qualify for the final, despite the fact being that pre the Olympics, he had all these kind of fast races. But we'll start off with the obvious ones anyway, kind of talk about why they've not struggled. So does anybody know the backstory between Simone Biles and kind of why I've put her there in terms of struggling to thrive currently right now?
Mental health.
Mental health, anyone remember what she said? It was during the Olympics. I've just gone by.
Mind and body not on the same page.
Yeah, bang on. Exactly. She pointed out that if she can't control her physical side, when you're twisting and doing all those 360s in the air, it's super dangerous. So she made this super hard decision to step out of not just the individual events, but I'm not sure, you might have seen as well that she stepped away from the final of the team competition. And from an athlete's point of view, it's okay to step away or back out of a sport if you're not affecting anyone else, to take the decision that you need to step away and you will influence other people's ability to succeed. It's a super challenging situation to be in. If you know Simone Biles and you search on Wikipedia, you'll know at the last Olympics in Rio, I think she won, I might be wrong, I think it might have been 4 gold medals. And at the time she was 18, 19 years old. And going into the Olympics, she was tipped to do it again. She's kind of like a Michael Phelps of the gymnastics world, and she was tipped to win all these different medals. But going into them, she had little sides of, my mental side struggling a little bit. I'm not as engaged within the process. I'm not as happy. And you saw in the Olympics, after I taken a little break within the week, she came back in the final event. I can't remember what discipline it was, but she won a bronze. And you could have said on paper for Simone Biles, that was a disappointment. For her to even get up onto the stage and get a bronze, that meant she took the break, she did what she needed to do, and it allowed her to kind of get something coming away from the Olympics. But she talked a lot around how she didn't enjoy it as much. And you might have seen, if you've watched football or you've watched any sport, athletes have had to compete in stadiums with no crowds. And a lot of athletes in the world, they thrive off the energy that the crowd gives. And a lot of athletes like to kind of see that the crowds and people around them are given the reassurance and appraising them, going, you're doing fantastic, when there's no one there to kind of give you that feedback. athletes kind of look a little bit lost. If you are big football fans, you might know that there was a lot of away wins last season, not just in the English league, across kind of Europe. A lot of teams would go to the home stadiums and so go away, and they would win the games. So that mentality, that home advantage, which has been a long-lasting thing within the psychology world, started to disappear. And you saw within the Olympics, some athletes really struggle to kind of hit the mark because they love the energy that the crowd gives them. Trevor Bromwell was another one. He was someone that went into it, and again, he didn't compete in Europe. So a lot of the big elite athletes compete mainly within Europe and the European competitions. And to see where you're going, how you're doing, you want to get an understanding of where you're at. He decided to stay within America and compete only within the American scene. And I think that lack of knowledge about where he was impacted his ability to kind of succeed in the Olympics, which again comes back to the process of thriving. Knowledge and understanding is really, really crucial. Does anybody know about Naomi Osaka, kind of what she went through?
That was mental health as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. She's had a couple of moments actually. So Naomi Osaka, she was a flag bearer for Japan. Again, I think she won the US Open last year, top 5 in the world for tennis. She went into the Olympics. I think it might have been the French Open or Wimbledon, where she was told she had to do a interview with a number of people, and she decided to not do it. As a result, I'm not sure she was kicked out, but I think she was allowed not to compete within the competition. I can't remember which one it was, but she took a stance because she said that it was impacting the mental health. But then the kind of the rules of the game went against her, and people had a lot of uproar because of how she was treated. She then went to the Olympics, and she was tipped to win a gold medal, struggled again. And then she came out after the Olympics and said that she'd been suffering with depression since 2018. This is an athlete that's at the top of the world, in the public eye constantly, and expected to do well. And she starts to take care of her own well-being, and kind of like, well, I need to take a break, I will do. And people, or the media, slaughtered her for it, which obviously sadly impacted it. She then came back after a little break, and obviously you've seen the US Open, and she went out in, I think, the first or the second round, which was a massive shock. But she actually went out to the other competitor within the final last night. But again, she now said she's going to take an indefinite break from swimming. So not from swimming, from tennis. So again, the mental side, the demands that athletes are placed under is massive, especially when you're always in the public eye, whether that's people around you or on social media. To look a certain way, behave a certain way is so demanding. So that's the downside of sport. But if you look on the left-hand side, you've obviously then got Djokovic. So no brainer with Djokovic. He's obviously been going for years and years and years. He's won the most amount of Grand Slams. He's currently due to do the final today in the US Open, and that could allow him to win all Grand Slams for this season, which is a crazy feat to think about. You've got Adam Peaty, which is a homegrown swimmer and athlete. He's based in Loughborough, up the road at Loughborough University. He's been training, I think, now for about five, 6 years. He obviously won, I think there's 2 gold medals and 1 silver. And he won the same, I think he pretty much won the single events as well at the last Rio Olympics as well. Then you've got Emma Raducanu. I put this in before the final. The reason I put that in there, she's been a recent progression. She's only 18. And you obviously saw her last night. She won the final. And within the whole of the US Open, she didn't drop 1 set, not a single set. And she had to actually qualify. She had to qualify to get into the US Open. So she had to compete, I think, 3 or 4 more matches than the rest of the athletes. And you might have seen her as well at Wimbledon back in July. She got through to the 4th round and then had to step away for health reasons. So she's someone that is kind of come onto the scene out of nowhere, only 18 years old. But if you did watch the US Open last night, she gave interviews a little bit on the psychology side, that she was always composed and calmed, took each point as it came along. She just wanted to enjoy what she was experiencing. And for her, that experience of feeling good was a really important thing. So you can presume that's had some positive influence on her ability to tolerate pressure and stress. Because in the final, the whole crowd was going for the Canadian. And when you're 18 and you hear no one cheering for you, you can imagine that would really impact you. But she kept going and she didn't let that affect her. And she still managed to overcome that home advantage and still win the tournament. So just gives you an example that athletes can thrive and they can also struggle. At the same point, if thriving isn't constant, you can go backwards. So with all those factors, always consider what am I doing to make sure that I'm staying on top of my thrive and also my well-being. So how can an athlete thrive? And this is where you guys come in, and these are a few simple techniques which I think you could employ. It could really, really benefit you. The first one, and I can't stress this enough, it can be really healthy, is just learn opportunities. And the key one here is exposure. If you look at any realm of psychology, whether it's mental toughness, mental resilience, and thriving, to get to that point where you're doing well and feeling good, you've got to obviously got to be exposed to things, and you will obviously need to expose yourself to things that you will find stressful. But I put in here, you perceive them as challenging and stressful, because some of you sitting in this room might enjoy feeling a bit under pressure. It gives you that buzz, gets your heart beat a little bit faster, and you need that to do well. So what I'd recommend to you guys is, if there's an area of your performance which you think you struggle, especially when you're under pressure, whether it's a last minute shot, whether it's a tactical play, whatever it may be, make sure you expose yourself to those opportunities. And a great way of doing that is doing it within training. So simulate it. If you do it within a training context, you might make a mistake, but that's okay, because there's lower consequences. And you can also start to develop of how to improve them. And at the same point, do it within the competition as well. There's a term that I love using within psychology called creative freedom. You've got to be able to feel confident to take risks, because until you take those risks, you won't know whether it will kind of go for you. But at the same point, it could go well, it might not go well. But if it doesn't go well, you're able to identify the information you need to tweak and improve. Support. This, I guess you probably heard this a lot over the last kind of 18 months. And you probably heard it a lot from using your social support network as a resource, but more from an emotional point of view. You forget that these coaches like Bobby, senior players that have gone through the DiSE platform, or even me, experts within the field, they've got this information that's rattling around their head that's probably not getting used. Just go speak to them, ask them for some information. So a key thing with succeeding is you've got to have the ability to apply yourself and execute a skill. If you're missing information, just go to someone that you might know that might have that information. You don't always have to go to someone for emotional support, which is a misconception of a support network. There's also information, but also you can also get practical support from it. Some called super strengths, and this is, I can't stress this enough. I call them templates for success. Obviously, you focus a lot within DiSE on improvements, weaknesses. At the same point, how can you continue going if you're focusing always on your weaknesses? It's quite draining to always look at the things that you're not very good at. So what I would recommend is, from your performances, identify what you do well, whether that's tactical stuff, whether it's psychological stuff, and the process that you use to kind of get to that point. Because if you understand what you're doing well, then you can start to replicate them. So you can go into a performance going, I do this well, I do that well, I do that well. And that's already going to give you a confidence boost, and will give you a chance to feel within yourself. And it also helps you protect you from things that you may do wrong or mistakes you might make. That's why you call them super strengths, because you want to strengthen the things you already do well. Number 4 is kind of understanding the outcomes that you go through and explaining why it's happened. And this is where you reflect on a lot. And sometimes an athlete, you might get told, right, ask me what happened there and why did it happen? It can be quite hard because you can be so broad. So for me, what I'd recommend, if you want to explain both a success but also a failure, use these 4 categories which I've got in here. So first of all, when you're trying to understand something that you've gone through, ask yourself, how much control did you have in the situation? Did you influence that outcome? Was it all you? Was it because you trained hard, you worked hard? If it wasn't, was it that you, on the day, someone else was better than you, so it was just bad luck? Was it external? That way, you can start to understand personally, from a personal point of view, what you did to influence the outcome. If it's all external, also it allows you to let go of it more easily, because you go, I could have done nothing wrong on the day. It was just that I came up against a better competitor. Next one is task difficulty. Sometimes you can go into things and they're just too difficult and they're above your ability levels, and that's okay, because your ability will improve as time goes on. But you've got to understand and work out, was that difficulty at a level that you could kind of deal with, which links onto the next one, ability level. And then finally, the 4th thing is just, how much effort did you put into that experience? If it was, you put 100% effort, great stuff, move on, you find you did nothing wrong. If you realize that you're probably a bit lazy or you could have done a little bit better, that's a really, really good starting point. You go into the next performance, go, I don't need to train anything. All I need to do is just try a little bit harder, and you might get a positive outcome from it. Number 5 is pre-performance. And a lot of the psychology that I work with athletes, a lot of it's done before you compete. You think before, and on the day, you don't do the thinking. You just kind of go into it in the moment and be present. So a few things that I would recommend for you guys kind of get into the habit of doing is, the first one is that I kind of live by, is a thing called positive expectations. So before you engage in a competitive performance, just sit down the night before and go, based on my training, based on what I've done, and based on all the things I know about myself, what are my positive expectations of them, of the performance? Because automatically, if you leave it to not sitting down and kind of controlling your thoughts, automatically your brain's going to think the worst and be pessimistic. Take a bit of control, sit down before, and just ask yourself what will go well, and it will make a massive difference to kind of not just be confident, but also start to feel a little bit better, which allows you to engage in kind of activating positive emotions. And if you feel good, you play good. Positive and personal statements about your skills and abilities. Again, you might find this challenging to do, but again, athletes, they try to big themselves up. Did anyone watch Jordan Pickford in the Euro final when he was taking the penalties?
Yeah.
Can you remember what he was saying to himself?
You've got this or something, or no problem.
Yeah, no problem. You've got this. You're fine. So he was just using positive statements and talking about himself to calm himself down. And he only did that. He's been working with, I think, sports psychs for about 18 months now at Everton. And it's such an elegant, simple process of just calming himself down by using these statements. The bit I have here is personal though. So instead of telling yourself, talking about it from a task point of view, tell yourself that I'm a calm person. I can cope with this. So it's much more broad, and you look at yourself as a character. That way, it kind of cements. It's more cemented within you because you think I can tolerate stress, not just in performance, but in all aspects of my life. And he was John Pickford, that prime example of just going, I'm calm, I'm ready, I can tolerate this. And I'm pretty sure he was seen doing it on the camera just before. I think it was Jorginho that took the penalty, which is if you've watched football, he's quite a challenging penalty taker to save against because he can obviously wait for the goalkeeper to react, but he was able to save it. And the final one when it comes to thriving is the breaks and recovery. I know sport is hard. You do a lot of training, whether it's fitness, tactical, technical, psychology. It's important to have those breaks from sport and disengage mentally, because you saw from thriving, it's a dual thing. You want to thrive in your life outside of sport as well. So I put here is consistently do things that you enjoy doing outside of sport. Now, if you can do non-sport related, so that's seeing your mates, going for a ride on the bike, whatever it may be, or even reading a book, which is dead simple. Just doing those things on a regular basis, which sounds simple, and if anything boring, but it can make a massive difference because it allows you to tolerate the pressure that you may be put under when you're competing within handball. So we're just coming towards the end now, guys. So this is the final bit of like discussion now that I want you to think about for your notes. And you've been great at kind of engaging verbally. So if you can do this final bit again, engage verbally again with me. On this slide, you've kind of got, I think there's 8 areas there. Again, you can choose other areas. So what I want you to think about is, first of all, in the last 2 years, but you've been on this for the last 18 months. In the last 18 months, of those kind of 8 there, which would you say are the ones that have improved the most over the last 12 to 18 months? Yeah, you want to come closer. I just got a recommendation. You might all need to buy some glasses.
Resilience.
Okay. Resilience. Anything else?
Positive mindset.
Okay.
You stood in the way of the camera. It's not.
No, what about you?
What you say?
Maybe this one. No.
Problem solving.
Problem solving.
Okay, give me an example of a problem that you've solved in the last 12 months.
More of the lockdowns and getting like fitness plans in place.
Yeah, great example of that. You've also got there motivation and commitment, and I think all of you lads quite positively said that that's actually improved, despite the fact it was threatened because of opportunities. You kept going and kind of working harder upon it. So, well done. Next question is, you don't have to get up for this one. Is what do you think's helped you develop those components? So, if it's problem solving, what's allowed you to become better at solving problems?
Necessity.
Oh, necessity. Okay, that's a good answer. Anything else? So again, I don't know if you said, the guy put your hand up in the right hand side there. I'm not sure if you said anything.
We had some intruders.
Sorry?
We had some intruders, so I was saying hello.
Fair enough. I think one would, I don't know if this guy will kind of help you answer this question, is the first one is simply experiences that you put. You had to when you're put into these problems and these scenarios, it was that kind of the mindset, if I don't deal with this problem, it's only going to get worse and I'm going to feel rubbish. Also, naturally through experience, you learn what you do wrong, which allows you to tweak things if you're faced with the same problem again. A great one as well is just information, I think, which you gain from experiences. You gain that from speaking to other people.
Can we start moving them out?
Sorry?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. They might have stuff on it. Yeah.
Sorry, Casper.
Not a problem.
You can carry on.
Carry on, yeah.
I think they're only
Yeah.
Are we all good?
Yeah.
Okay. So would you say overall, psychologically, as athletes, would you say you're in a much better place than you were 12 months ago psychologically?
Yes.
Okay. Would you say that your performance has benefited from those experiences?
Yeah. Yes.
Good stuff. All right. Okay. Thank you for that engagement. Appreciate that. And this is the final one, guys. And this is kind of just finishing it off. To be cheesy as a psychologist, I've finished it with a quote because I think it's quite nice, because I think anyone always has potential to keep going and improving. Doesn't matter whether you're an adolescent, youth athlete, senior athlete, whatever it may be. And the quote I like is, potential is a priceless treasure. Like gold, all of it's hidden within us. All we have to do is dig in to get it out. And I think that kind of resonates with yourselves, that psychology is a lot of it is internal. And often the biggest enemy can be yourself. So here's a few steps that you can utilize just to continue that process of fulfilling the potential and continue that experience of thriving. All of it's got I'll try to go down with the theme of P's. So first of all is passion. Reflect on what you love about handball. I think even though it's boring, you might find it challenging to reflect. I think it's important to kind of regularly ask yourself, why am I doing what I'm doing? Because it gives you a purpose and a direction. If it allows you just simply to feel good, that's why you engage yourself in handball, and that'll get you a long way within your career. Positive emotions, focus on how you feel. And I think this is really important. Athletes go into performances, into training, often really focusing hard on skill execution, how to do a skill. Sometimes reduce the pressure, keep it really simple and open mind. Just go, right, I want to go into this and have fun and feel good. And it's really, it allows you to think less, also enjoy yourself a bit more. Progression. So again, you got DiSE is focused on it's focused on development, it's focused on skill mastery. Yes, you want to execute your skills well, and you want to perform well in front of other people and get these big results, but you need to focus a lot as well on skill mastery and development, and understand the progression that you've made over the last 12 months, because again, that allows you to see progression, especially if just by observations you're not seeing the obvious progressions. By writing down things through your reflections allows you to stay committed to the process. Positive relationships, I've banged on about this enough. Just use people when you need to use them. You don't have to, or you have to use them for the sake of it. Just use them when you need to. It doesn't have to be emotional. You've got information support, you've got practical support. There's various ways you can utilize them. But I tell you what, if you watch the top athletes that win championships, win medals, they will thank the team around them and how they've helped them get to that point. Try to think about, if you're one of these athletes that maybe you don't feel as confident speaking to other people, try to set that as a goal by engaging with other people to allow yourself to gain more knowledge and improve your abilities to kind of hit your goals that you want to get. And then just, again, use success and previous experiences to keep yourself going and learn from them. And again, that phrase I've got there is template for success. Athletes can just have a book and they can write down, these are all the things that I do well. And it keeps them on top of stuff. And the things that you do well don't have to be psychological. It can be in the 4 areas of performance. So tactically what to do well, technically what to do well, physically, and also psychologically. And again, that's great from a knowledge point of view, and also allowing yourself to feel more prepared going into performance, but also from a confidence and a kind of positive feeling point of view as well. So that's it, lads. What I'd recommend is, with this sort of stuff, just write down a few observations, few notes you think about from a thriving point of view. Again, you've engaged really well with this from a verbal point of view, but just back up with a few notes on a piece of paper, or even if you've been doing it on your phone, and you can either put it in a work booklet or just use it as a Word document, and it makes life a lot easier. And hopefully it allows you personally to get something from this. So when you go into the new season, you'll be able to think, well, I'll remember this now, maybe I'll utilize that going into my new season so I can be more psychologically prepared. Is there any questions at all from what you've gone through?
No, from us, maybe Jamie.
Does Jamie have any questions?
No. Jamie's done very. Jamie's been in the background like a shadow with his hood up, trying to pretend like I'm just going to blend into the background. He's done well, but I'll keep my eye out for him. Lads, can I just say, it's always a weird experience trying to do this virtually. Also, as well, doing it on a screen when I'm not there in person. You could easily sit there in the background and not say a word. So, can I just say I appreciate you verbally kind of engaging with me. Also, as well, getting up to look at the slides. You don't have to. So Bobby will be very happy with your experience and your engagement in this process. So thank you very much for doing that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Not a problem. Like I said, this is the last workshop that you probably have, I think, throughout the next year at DiSE. But again, if there is anything psychologically which you feel you might want to work upon or want to tweak or have any skills to utilize, again, I'm always here. You can get my email, my number through Bobby, and I'm always accessible, again, using me as a resource just to gain some more information and knowledge. But what you can do now is you can go switch off, have another nap, because I know it's early in the morning. When's your next session?
10 o'clock.
10 o'clock. So cool, there you go. I'm very kind. I'm allowing you to finish 12 minutes early. So enjoy yourself, lads, and hopefully I'll get to see you face to face at some point in the next 6 months, because I've not had the opportunity to do that yet. So thank you for being part of the process.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Good stuff.
Cheers.
So I guess one of them, if one of you can just, I guess, allow Bobby to get away from the Zoom call, just go into the computer and press end call.
Bye. Bye.
See you soon.
Thanks, Casper.